Good afternoon. Welcome to Entrepreneurial Live Interviews with Connie Fuksa. I bring you this interview series because I really want to share with you some really hardworking people that are amazing in their own right because they saw a need that needed to be filled in our communities, or they felt like something that was really strong and passionate to them, and they just said, you know what, I want to do this. I want to make a change. And entrepreneurs are not necessarily people that just started a business, but it could be somebody who works inside of a business or works with a business and helps them promote. And so entrepreneurs are people that just took an opportunity and developed it into something that helps all the rest of us. And so today I have a really amazing honor to share with you guys, a lady that I just recently met, and she has so much energy and has so many things going on, and I'm so excited to share her with you. So today I can't wait to introduce you to Danielle Dardashti. I just met her recently. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Connie.
Yeah, I am so thrilled. So Danielle, would you please tell us your story? Tell us a little bit about you, because that's what this is all about, is learning about people's journeys and the things that they went through as they've developed this journey. So share with us who you are, where you came from, how you got to where you are now, and what you're doing right now.
Sure. Well, I grew up all over the country in a variety of different states, and my parents are super adventurous types. And we actually were a singing family. I don't think I told you about this in our conversation the other day, but we were we still are a singing family, but we were like the Jewish Von Trapp family, I would say, performing at folk festivals and different places all over the country, and sometimes in other countries as well. And it was a big adventure all the time. And my parents actually moved from state to state, different places. My mom was a teacher, my dad is clergy, and we had quite an adventurous childhood. And as an adult, I also had an adventurous career. For the first several years of my career, I moved from state to state as a television reporter. So it kind of was like in my blood to do that. Mm-hmm. And I got a chance to see a lot of this country and really get a perspective on East Coast, West Coast, Middle America, the South. I've lived kind of a little bit of everywhere. And as a TV reporter, I lived in Ohio, South Carolina, which is where you are right now, correct? And then I was in North Carolina, and then I was in Atlanta as a reporter at the Fox station in Atlanta. And when I was reporting in Atlanta, I started also producing television documentaries for a company that was producing educational media about children and family health, and became really passionate about producing those long form stories, telling these long stories about people's lives and about things that affect children and families, and became really good at making the connection between the business side and the creative side. And I've kind of ever since then straddled both worlds. I ended up running marketing and business development at a big major media company called Meredith Corporation that now owns Time Inc. and owns a lot of TV stations and magazines and Better Homes and Gardens and Parents Magazine and some of the other ones. And I ran business development in a video division within Meredith's video studios. And that was an incredible experience because I took all of my storytelling abilities from the life that I led in television news and in producing documentaries and applied that to the world of advertising and marketing and helping brands tell stories on behalf of the company, and also working with their customers to tell stories that matter to them. And so that kind of launched a new part of my career, the last 10 years, where I have worked specifically with companies and the executives at companies to help them tell impactful stories. And that really takes on a lot of different types of stories. It can be podcasting, it can be video series, it can be a personal story within a speaking engagement at a microphone. And I work with people of all different kinds at a variety of different companies on all of that. This week I'm working with a financial company on a project. Next week I'm going to be working with a consumer packaged goods company on a project. So it really, it varies.
Wow. I mean, what an interesting story. As I told you guys, this is so amazing. So at some point, well, first I want to go back to this. You telling me about your singing family. Yeah, we didn't talk about that initially. That sounds so cool. But the fun part about it is you totally got to spread your wings all over the place and learn about all different kinds of places. So then when the world came into its own for you, you just had already seen so many things. So then you could really dive into things that were important to you that you really had fun with. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And, also, I think that having to shift gears and start over in a variety of ways, while it was super hard in some ways as a kid, I think in my career, it has been super useful, because when everything changes, as it does sometimes, like in the last few months, and people are talking about a new normal, I have experienced several new normals over the course of my life, having moved from place to place. And I think that serves a person well in a time like this.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty profound, because as a child, it was probably so difficult to readjust every time something changed. But now looking back, you probably have more experience with that than most of us do. And so it's really been probably very helpful for you to be able to make those shifts. That's really interesting. Good analogy right there. So tell us.
And I also got a lot of good stories out of it. So
I bet. Well, yeah, developing your own book of stories for sure. So how did you go from being in television production, documentaries, to obviously at some point you said, never mind, I don't want to do this way. I want to do it my own way. And you decided to open your company, which is what?
Well, okay. So what happened was I was working in-house at a lot of very large companies like Meredith Corporation and Tribune Publishing, helping them work with clients and working with their advertisers to help tell better stories. I was doing really what I do now on my own, but on behalf of these companies. And 4 years ago, I was part of a large layoff, actually, at Tribune Publishing. And when they sold off the LA Times and changed the company entirely. And during the time that I was on a severance package, luckily, and having some time to think about things, I started doing a bit of consulting for some companies on my own, representing me. And, and it was a really interesting experience, because all of my career, I had been Danielle Dardashti from Fox 5, Danielle Dardashti from Meredith Corporation, Danielle Dardashti from Tribune Publishing. And all of a sudden, I was just Danielle Dardashti there, helping a company tell its story or solve its problems or think about its business issues. And I was like, wow, this feels really, really different. Part of it felt really, really different in a good way. And part of it initially felt really, really different in not so good of a way. And I couldn't put my finger on what was missing for me in the beginning. One day I was having lunch with a friend, a very wise, wonderful friend of mine. And she said to me, what are you missing? Why are you thinking about going back to work when this severance is over? Why are you not building this and thinking about starting your own company? And I it was a really hard thing to articulate, but I felt like I needed that sort of grounding of, I am Danielle Dardashti from whatever company it was. And she said, well, why don't you just name your company? And I thought to myself, it sounded so bizarrely simple, and I did not really realize what it was going to do for me, because up until that point, I was sort of freelancing, consulting, just on behalf of myself. That weekend, I created Dash, and I built a website, and I wasn't doing anything different in my day-to-day than I had been doing for the 6 months before that, except for that I called it something. And my mindset was totally different. I don't know if you've had people tell stories similar to that, but for me, it was, I'm Danielle Dardashti from Dash branded content, and this is what I do. And I established, here's who I am, here's what I do, here's why I do what I do. And it actually began to feel more fulfilling than I had ever felt in a job at a company before. Wow. But it was like I just needed that sort of one step to call it a thing, even though I was doing the exact same thing in my day job. It became more fulfilling to define. And honestly, Connie, that is part of the power of storytelling, of really branding yourself and naming it and saying, I know who I am, I know what I do, and I know why I do it. And that's what I did. That was back in, so it was 2016 that I actually started consulting, but it was 2017 that I named the company and actually became officially Dash.
That's when you put your flag in the ground and said, all right, here we are doing it, which is really interesting the way you're explaining this, because you, unlike a lot of entrepreneurs, sort of ended up doing that because of, not because you said, oh, I'm going to go do this and create this. And I mean, really, you were doing it and then said, wait, I need my grounded piece to be somebody of something. Very interesting story. So thank you for sharing that. That's really cool, because it's so very different from most of the people that we talk to.
Yeah, no, I was never, it's interesting because I never was like out to start my own company. My company started on its own. And I think the reason that it started was because, look, I love what I do. I'm really passionate about what I do, and I'm good at what I do. And it happened so quickly and so easily that when my friend then said to me, why are you thinking about getting a full-time job after this severance is over? I was almost taken aback by, well, wait, why wouldn't I?
Yeah, what do you mean?
What do you mean? And she's like, it sounds like you've started your own company. And I was like,
very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. That is really cool. So tell us, what exactly is storytelling? Tell us what that means when you're talking about teaching people to be a better storyteller. Tell us exactly what that looks like.
So it depends on who you are and what you're doing. I actually do this with so many different types of groups. Just for an example, this summer I'm leading 2 courses. Okay. Very, very different audiences. One audience is for people who are looking to improve their public speaking and incorporate storytelling into their public speaking. Another one is strategic storytelling for job interviews. Specifically, what story are you telling through your LinkedIn, through your resume, on job interviews with prospective employers? How are you defining yourself? Now, the common thread with all of this, whether it's in public speaking, whether it's in videos or podcasts on behalf of a major corporation, whether it's what you're saying to a prospective employer in a job interview, It's how you define yourself and how you connect then with your audience, with other people. And so your story is your personal brand. Your story helps communicate outwardly to everyone around you and to who you are communicating with at that moment, what it is that you strategically want them to know, and why you want them to know that. So do you see what I'm saying? So like with the job interview audience, totally different kind of purpose than the public speaking type of an audience, but it's really the same thing. It's helping to define yourself and build that connection with your audience.
Nice. Very interesting. And very interesting that there's so many different levels of that. And there's so many different ways to talk about that information based on the audience that you're presenting to as you're sharing the two different workshops that you have. So as an entrepreneur and as a person that started a business that really didn't plan on starting a business, tell us maybe some of the mechanics of the things that happened as you decided to start doing that you were not at all prepared for. Like you just didn't know that you needed to know some of these things when you said, okay, well, I guess I'm going to give it a name now, and I'm going to give it a slogan, and I'm going to decide how I'm going to talk about it to people. But obviously a business is so much more than that. And so talk to us a little bit from the entrepreneurial perspective about things that you just didn't know that you're really glad you know now, and how you figured those out, like how you went through some of these processes.
Well, one of the things is staffing. I think, after a certain point, I realized I needed help, and that I had more work than I could handle myself as one human being. The first step was getting an assistant, and I have an amazing assistant. She's actually a virtual assistant that I have through a company that has just been a godsend to me. I'm going to give them a plug right now. They're called 100 Ninjas, and they're amazing. And so my ninja, she is just amazing. And I've had her for 3 years now. So right around that time that I decided I was a business, that was like one of the first things that I needed to do was hire an assistant. And it's been great. Then about a year later, after that, I let me take it back a step and say that I'm the kind of person that I say yes to things, and then I figure out how I'm going to do them. And a
lot of us do that.
Yeah. And I'm a very enthusiastic person. I automatically say yes to things before I've really thought about how I'm going to staff it and how I'm going to get that, taken care of. So what happened I guess it was about 2.5 years ago, was that all of a sudden I had gotten to a point where the consulting projects that I had taken on were more than I could handle myself. And I was in a moment where I looked around me and I had a variety of friends in media research, in media sales, in media marketing, in a variety of areas that were related to my communications field, who were out of work. Oh. The media and marketing industry it's absolutely insane. The length of time, the short length of time that people are in a particular job. There are so many layoffs and consolidations and mergers in the media industry that about once a year or once every 2 years, people are changing jobs. And generally between jobs, everybody has like a period of time where they, like I was in my situation at Tribune, where they are consulting for a period of time. And some of them end up staying consultants and create their own businesses, because they see the need in the market for what they're doing. I have one friend who's a researcher, one friend who's in more purpose-driven content creation, one friend that's a podcaster. I have a variety of friends that started out in a similar way, where because of a merger or an acquisition in a company. And I started tapping in to these seasonal employees, shall we call them, who are very high level, people who have been chief marketing officers and other high level people in the marketing and media industry, who are available for a short period of time, and utilizing them to consult on projects with me. And for me, it has been more than just learning about how to staff up on various projects. It has been an amazing community that I now have built. And during COVID right now, we have meetings every 2 weeks. We have a virtual Zoom meeting where we get together, we share ideas, we all talk about various projects that we're working on at that moment, and we collaborate. And it is such a true collaboration. So I don't have any full-time employees, but I have a number of people who have been with me for the last 2.5 to 3 years, besides my assistant. The rest of them are all people who come in and out depending on what the projects are. And it has been an incredible experience. And I have gotten projects and gotten them projects. And it's just been the whole idea of me sort of feeling like I didn't have a company and it was like I was a freelancer went away in a matter of months when this whole network began, because this community of amazing human beings has become my work family.
That's really cool. You've taken a concept of, instead of putting together employees or team members or other consultants that would work for you, you guys are doing this collaboration, and it's very beneficial for all of you, actually, because of, you know, what everybody brings to the table. They're bringing work to you, you're bringing work to them. What a neat way to develop that that support system, if you will. That's really cool.
It is, and it's set up very well for the economy right now.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Because when you have a client that suddenly isn't able, to pay the retainer at the same level that they were before, or you have a new company that suddenly comes in as a client because they need help just for a short-term basis for us to help them develop stories. It's a really good and very adaptable, flexible model that can scale up or scale down, and nobody ever needs to be let go or laid off, or it's a really I think a lot of companies are actually going to be moving to a more flexible model in the future, like that, where So it's been really, really great.
Well, the cool thing is too, one of the hardest things about owning a business is the employee piece of that puzzle, because you want to bring people on, you need help, you need assistance to get things done, but then you're responsible for that person, their family, making sure they get paid. The hardest part is, taking on that commitment and having to deal with the responsibility of all of those pieces. And you figured out a way to manage that for all of you, in the respect that nobody's an employee, everybody's bringing their own piece. You're collaborating. Some are helping in some ways, some are helping in others. When they're, when they have the opportunity to do something else work-wise, they can do that. I mean, it's really flexible and it's very interesting. That's a really cool concept to share. Thank you for sharing that. That's really neat.
Yeah, and it's been good because we also have gotten to know each other through these regular meetings, and we know each other's strengths. And so it's really interesting because even though we're all in similar fields, everybody has such different abilities that you kind of always know who the person is that you need to pull in as your tag team on a particular project. And it works out really, really nicely.
Very cool. Very cool. Very interesting concept and way to do that. And good calling out on a company to work with, because, I mean, that's exactly what we're trying to do here is share information, share resources, help people, understand some of the processes, some pitfalls, and maybe some opportunities to where they can grow based on, experiences from others. So that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your projects that are coming up, because you have two pretty strong projects coming up that are available, and we're going to post the links to them in the comments, so if anybody's interested in them. But tell us about those and how they relate, obviously how they relate to your business, and particularly right now you're doing these things online instead of in person. So tell us about all of that and how that's working out too.
It's working out really well online. It's been really interesting because the first few weeks in March, when we were all in this shelter in place kind of situation, and I thought it was only going to last a couple of weeks at that point.
Like everybody did, sure.
Yeah, I had put everything on hold and said, and I actually had a couple of corporate workshops that I was supposed to be doing in March that were put on hold, and they said, you know what, we'll talk in April and we'll reschedule it for May or whatever. And then April came, and then May came, and then it was like it snuck up on us, and we didn't realize how long it had been. And then suddenly it had been 6 weeks. And I think around the end of May was when people started realizing that they couldn't wait. They couldn't just wait for everything to happen in person, and they needed to really start behaving like virtual is the new normal, for real.
There you go.
And at that point, I actually did my first online workshop April 1st, but I thought it was just an anomaly. Then by the time I did my second online workshop, April 28th, I was in a mode where I was feeling like this is actually doable right now. And a lot of it is the technology. I mean, with breakout rooms and all of that, if you get good at using it, you can feel like it's happening in person. I think I for some odd reason, at my storytelling workshops online, you're gonna laugh, but people cry more. People tend
maybe because they're in their own environment and they feel like, oh, I'm not in public. I don't know.
That's what yes.
That's like, interesting.
It becomes very, very emotional. Whereas I thought that like doing virtual storytelling workshops wouldn't feel as emotional and as connected as an in-person one. But I think for some reason, because everybody is in their own environment and people are feeling emotional already because of the situation, it has been really, really valuable stuff. And we've gotten some great work done virtually that I never really expected, as far as like people feeling like, oh my goodness, I found my story. So fantastic. It's been really great.
Tell us about your two workshops that are coming up, so that way we can share them. If anybody's looking for, that kind of thing, we can certainly share that information and hopefully help with that.
One of the workshops, which is being co-hosted by Retreat and Learn, and I think you have the link to that one. That one is to help participants prepare for incorporating storytelling into public speaking. And that is, at the end of that course, people will have a 5-minute story ready to go. And they will have, it's a 5-part course. Both of my courses this summer are 5-part courses, but they're designed a little bit different. The one that is for public speaking has 3 parts that meet as a small group, and 2 parts where I meet with participants one-on-one to really give them some individual feedback on delivery and descriptive details and all of that they're using. And they are going to come out of that course with a 5-minute story ready to go to be used in a TED Talk or in a public speaking engagement or in a toast at a party or wherever they need that 5-minute story for.
Nice.
The other workshop is specifically, as I mentioned before, for job interviews. And at the end of that course, people will have a revised resume, a revised LinkedIn profile, and they will know their elevator story and their success stories and be able to articulate them in a succinct fashion during their job interview process. So both course series have some deliverables at the end where people will be ready to go.
Nice. Well, we're going to post both of those links in the comments as soon as we're finished. So anybody who wants to see that can do that. So Danielle, as we wrap up, can you share with us, you've been down a very different entrepreneurial path than most. And so share with us some wisdom, something that's gotten you through or that you fall back on when things get a little crazy, or something that you think if somebody was to start out and go down this path, a piece of advice that you think that they've got to have.
I think the best advice for somebody who is in a job at a big company or going out on their own is be open. You never know what's going to happen, and don't get stuck in a rut moving in one direction. I mean, it was like when I was on severance, I was like in that sort of mindset with blinders on of, all right, when this is over, I'm going to get a new job. Mm-hmm. And I think you sometimes need to look around and see the moment that you're in, be in that moment, be open to it, and understand where you're at and let it happen.
I love it. That is fantastic advice. So Danielle, as we wrap up, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and, talk more after today, how do people find you?
Well, you can find me, the best platform to get in touch with me on is on LinkedIn, but you can also email me directly at Danielle@brandedcontent.com. It's Danielle@brandedcontent.com. That's my email address. Feel free to reach out directly or just give me a shout on LinkedIn.
Excellent. All right. Well, we will post all that information on in the comments as well. As we've said before, guys, this is being broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube. To make sure you don't miss, or if you want to go back and see any parts of this, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Connie Fuksa. It'll also be posted on LinkedIn, and we'll be tagging Danielle. So if you're friends with her, you'll see it on her page as well. And then we will be doing an article in a couple of weeks that recaps a lot of the really fine points that Danielle has brought to us today. This has been so interesting and so much fun because it's such a fantastic story that is so unlike most of the other that we've talked about. And I just can't thank you enough for taking the time today to talk to us.
Well, thank you for having me, Connie. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Entrepreneurial Live Interviews with Connie Fuksa. You can also see other versions of this or rewind this also on my website, Connie Fuksa. And there's also lots of tools because I work on helping you. Danielle helps you tell your story. I help you work on getting those pieces of gold nuggets out of your head and into conversation so you can share with people all of the valuable expertise that you have that you don't even realize is up there. So I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Again, thank you to Danielle, and we'll see you guys again soon on Entrepreneurial Live Interviews with Connie Fuksa. Bye-bye.